met some people in you. Boom. All right. Well, thanks again. Happy Friday. Can't believe it's the end of the month.
End of the month already.
Can you believe that?
Wow.
Yeah. February.
February is gone.
Yeah. Now we're into March.
Yes.
What's the plan for March?
More leads, more listings, more buyers.
I
more
love it.
sellers. That's it.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you everyone for being on the call today. I have the famous, legendary Mr. Fred Howard on the house. How
Yeah.
you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks
That's-
again for doing this and being part of this. So let's go way back. Let's even go before real estate.
Ooh.
I'm curious to know, what did you do prior to real estate?
Well, my history is pretty interesting because I graduated on, this is going to date me. I graduated high school in 1983.
83.
And the minute I graduated high school, I went to get a job.
Okay.
And I started working at the Veterans Administration
Yeah.
on Wilshire, 11,000 Wilshire Boulevard. And so I worked there until as a clerk in the finance division, and then ultimately before I left, I was the supervisor of the accounts receivable unit. And I left a month after my first son was born in 1989 because during that time I started going to school to do hair. So I worked from 7 to 3:30 and then went to school from 7 to 10.
Okay.
And then got my license to do hair. And so my son was a month old and I went straight into a salon called the Look Apart in the Fox Hills Mall.
Look up what?
Look Apart in the Fox Hills Mall. And so I was always in management and supervision. So the owners were like, yeah, we want you to stay. We want to sell you the salon. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And so I started making the salon so much money, they were like, oh no, we don't want to sell anymore. So I left and opened up my own salon.
Really? Okay.
And so I opened up my own salon and I started doing hair. And then there was a time while I was doing hair that I said, you know what? During that time, I had worked on Western. I worked for Mazzani, which was a platform artist for Soft Sheen. I was a platform artist there. And then I went from there to Women's Salon on Western. And then I just said, you know what, I'm tired of working for myself. I'm going to get a job. So I went to a one-stop place one day and applied. And while I was on my way home, they called me back for the airlines. And so from there, I started working for the airlines and in the cargo division.
Oh, I was gonna say, were you a pilot?
No, I was working in the cargo division, and then 911 happened.
Mm.
And so when 911 happened, many of you know that uh, the planes just stopped. And so that was my first time actually getting laid off of a job. And so I went to school for ministry because during that time I was a minister. I started pastoring 28 years ago. And so I decided that, you know what, I'm going to go to school, went to school for ministry for a year. And then the airlines called me back. And so when they called me back, I said, you know, I don't want to get laid off again. So I started doing school for real estate. So
Okay.
I worked from 10 at night to 6 in the morning, but I went to school from 7 to 9 for real estate.
Yeah.
And then after I got my license, I still was working the midnight shift. Went home from 7 to about 12. I went to sleep, and from 1 to 5, I was in the office. And so I remember vividly. I started actually coming up in April. Starts my 20th year.
Wow.
And so I started in April, and I immediately started in coaching. And so my coach told me, he said, you have to talk to somebody in order to get business. And I said, I can't talk to people in my phone because they're just my church folk, and I think that's a conflict of interest. And he said, well, you got to talk to somebody. And I said, okay. So I read a book called Pre-Foreclosures, and it was geared towards investors. but I took a portion of it that would actually help me, and that was a 6-letter system. It said, send 6 letters 14 days apart to each person that's in foreclosure and see what the results were.
Repeat that again, please.
Send 6 letters 14 days apart and you'll get the results.
Okay.
And so probably starting in mid-May, June, I started sending letters 14 days apart. I pulled the list. At that time, it was called Foreclosure Radar. Now it's called Property Radar.
Correct.
And I would just pull the list. I paid for the service,
Right.
pulled the list and mailed the letters. And the phone started ringing. And that enabled me to close 15 deals in less than 6 months. And
Wait, 15 deals in less than 6 months
15 deals
from
in less.
doing what you just said earlier.
Yes, yes. And I remember, now mind you, I'm dating myself.
Yeah.
20 years ago, right in the front, I received my Rookie of the Year award right here. And so that was the start of my real estate career. And it took, even though I got Rookie of the Year, even though I made 6 figures the first 6 months, I still kept working. And I wasn't just working one job. I still was doing hair part-time. I was working at the airlines from 10 to 6. I was pastoring and doing real estate. And I did all of that. So that's why I have a passion for new agents, because anytime they tell me they can't, I tell you no, because I did that without social media.
That's right.
Without WhatsApp, without TikTok, without Facebook, okay, without Instagram. I had a pager.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's actually how I got my start in real estate, and so it's just a passion. It's something that I do like I did with hair. I do it because I love it. And I know that there's enough business out there for everyone because it's a relational business. We always say, I have a shirt that says real estate is a contact sport.
Right.
The more people you talk to, the more they're able to know what you can do with them and for them. Did I talk too much? Yeah.
No, not at all. That's actually pretty impressive. Just because a lot of people don't do what you did, right? You sacrificed a little bit to ultimately do something else. You were wearing multiple hats, and on top of your different types of roles, how did you have time for the family?
See, my wife may be watching this right now, so why do you have to go there? So it was rough. It was rough. I'm telling you, I almost said this in team meeting. I think because I was in coaching my first year, so I started in May, in April. So my first family reunion was in February. And back then, family reunion was always on February 14th. And my wife did not travel. And so because I was in the coaching program, I was gone at least 4 times a year on a training. And so the first few years, it was, it was hectic, be honest, but marriage is a challenge and you learn how to grow with and around each other. And because my wife at that time was working for Northrop and my daughter was born. And when my daughter was born, she retired from Northrop. And so she became a stay-at-home mom. And then she had a daycare. So the one thing that I can say that kept us the glue together was at least I was able to pay the bills in the house, and keep everything together. So that was, it was a struggle. I did the best that I could to make sure I maintained relationship with my children. I have an older son, I have a middle son, and I have a younger daughter. So both of my sons were in Atlanta, but now one just joined the Army as a chaplain. So he's moving from Atlanta to New York. Now, one thing I can say is that I always had self-talk telling me what I could not do.
Sure.
And so there was a period of 9 years that my middle son would live in Spain. And I always wanted to go to Spain, but I never could say I could afford to until I changed my verbiage. And instead of saying I can't, I want to go to Spain, but I said I want to go to Spain, and when I get the money. And guess what? The money showed up. So um, it's a good journey. So, but family is still strong.
Yeah.
You know, sons are still strong, daughter is still strong, wife is still strong.
You just had an anniversary, right?
Right.
Yeah. And how long?
28 years. 28 years. And that was a struggle too. The reason why that was a struggle is because, mind you, I've been pastoring for 28 years. I've been married for 28 years. I got married in November of 96. I started pastoring in January of 97.
Mm.
And so it's no easy task to go from uh, just a preacher to a pastor and be married at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
So why real estate? With all of the other stuff you were dealing with, working at the airlines, working at a salon, what geared you to real estate?
Well, I was always my own person. I always wanted to work for myself. My dad always taught me money doesn't grow on trees.
Mm.
So you got to go out there and get it. And I've always been a go-getter.
Yeah.
And so I used to tell myself I wasn't a salesperson, but I realized that everything I do is sales.
Right.
You know, when I did hair, hey, why don't you come and sit in my chair? Everything I do in sales, even in church, I'm trying to get people to live a better life with the words that choose to come out of my mouth. So it's an interesting experience. But the way I chose real estate was I was back in real estate when it was the DOS age. You remember when you had to
Yeah.
log into DOS and
Oh, yeah.
Prodigy.
Right.
Many people don't remember Prodigy. Prodigy was the original AOL. That's why I teased y'all. I teased Simon because he still has an AOL email address.
Hey, it still works.
Because when I see AOL on anybody's email address, it takes me all the way back to
We're old timers.
right. We're old timers, you know.
That's your age.
No. See. So I was in the age of many people don't know Carlton Sheets,
Oh, yeah.
Hashi Hanta,
Oh,
where
yes.
they would say, no money down, you can purchase real estate as an investor. Consumer News, where you had all the publications.
I'll go even way back.
Where's that?
Tom Wu.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I remember
Tom
him.
Wu.
Yeah.
He was, I think, Vietnamese.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was an interesting
Yeah,
person.
that's when they had them on the boats and saying, you can do this. And that's what got
Yeah.
my hunger for real estate.
Mm. Yeah, that's kind of what resonates with me. That's how I kind of geared. Not that I wanted to get into real estate, but I wanted to learn the aspect of investments, right?
Mhm.
That was always my niche. But I says, well, I would go to these seminars, Fred, and think I would get that magic sauce. And they would
Right,
say,
right.
yeah, we'll give it to you on a 3-day training, but
Right.
only 10,000.
Right.
I didn't have $10,000 in my 20s. I was barely making it myself,
Right.
know. But yeah, it's been an interesting roller coaster. Now you started in an interesting time in real estate,
Mhm.
early 2000s, right just before the mortgage meltdown of 2008.
Right.
How was that experience for you? Because a lot of people on the call don't know, never experienced that. Did it feel the same as we did during COVID? Was it a little different for you?
Well, to me, I had a different experience. And, I share this because every experience takes you into where you're going next. And so um, I was a six-figure earner my first 6 months. My next year, I was a six-figure earner, 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I worked for Auckland as an REO agent, meaning I would go out and do BPOs for properties. And this is me being transparent.
Right.
The day my daughter was born in 98, the day she was born, we closed escrow on my house. Okay. Now, mind you, I didn't start real estate in 2000 until 2005. So I was doing hair all of that time. So I was doing good, took loans out of my house and everything. At that time in 2007, it was at 440 and I was paying $3,800 a month. And as an REO agent for Auckland, who actually held my mortgage, When the market crashed, so did my real estate business. So I ended up staying at home for a whole year, not doing anything.
Yeah.
And actually, I started a business, but it still wasn't doing what it should have done. That I had to make the decision, pay my mortgage or put food and clothes on my family's back.
Right.
And I chose to do the latter. And I ended up in foreclosure with art.
Yeah.
And I remember the day I was looking out my window and someone drove past my house and took a picture of it.
Mm.
And I knew that it was going into foreclosure. And so that's when I found out about NACA,
Mm.
and I started the process with them. And they actually reduced my mortgage from 220, I mean from 440 to 220, my payment from 3,800 to 1,400, my interest rate from 8% to 2%.
Wow.
For the life of the loan.
Wow.
And so immediately when that happened, I went over to Naka and I said, thank you.
Yeah.
I said, thank you. I said, I really want, because mind you, I did all of that online. Everybody was at the convention center.
At the convention
Yeah.
center in Los Angeles.
I didn't want,
Thousands of
yeah,
people.
I
You were there all day.
I didn't want Channel 7 in my face saying, why are you here? Because I didn't want anybody to know. And so I did everything online because of my financial background at the VA, and so when it finally went through, I just went to the office physically and I said, I wanted to say thank you.
Right.
And so while I was leaving, they said, well, you're a realtor, right? And I said, yeah. I said, well, can you work with us? And I said, well, do I have to leave my company? And they were like, yeah, you do. I said, well, no, I was hooked on KW, period. I said, no.
Was KW your first and only?
No,
Okay.
KW was my second. I was at the drinking age company before, Century, Century 21.
The jacket.
Yeah, and the gold jacket. And basically, when I got my license, and I did it because it was close to my house.
Mhm.
When I got my license, I went to the office and they said, okay, sit here and wait for the phone to ring.
Yeah.
And phone would ring, somebody would say, I want to go see this house. I would go out and see the house and they wouldn't show up. And then one day, April 1st is my wife's birthday. Happy birthday. For April 1st is her birthday. We went out to a restaurant called McCormick and Smith's. And there was a young lady. This is why relationship is so important.
Yeah.
There was a young lady that was one of my hairstylists in my first salon that I opened. Mm-hmm. And she was at the restaurant and she said, hey, how you doing? Hadn't seen her in a while.
Sure.
She said, I'm with KW. I said, yeah, I just got my license. That was on a Friday. That next Monday, I was sitting in the team leader's office here at KW, at this office. Mm-hmm. Yes. And so from that, I started developing a relationship with NACA after they did that, because I did not work with buyers. I all of those things that I did, that my first years, those were all listings. And the buyers that I had were basically from the listings that I had.
Got it.
And so that's what happened when the market crashed for me. It just made a shift into how I did my business now. Now, the pandemic, believe it or not, and this is what saved me. This is why, because I did not work with buyers, okay? When the pandemic came, all of my business came from buyers. My highest producing year was the year of the pandemic, and they were all with NACA buyers.
Amazing. Wow. Yeah, pretty impressive. That was in 2020 or 2021?
That was in 2021.
Got it. Wow. Interesting. So let me, so now let's kind of pivot into, you got over the pandemic and you got over the meltdown of 2008. So what sustained you? Were you doing marketing, newsletters, to generate opportunities?
Right now, then it became more referral business. Okay. It came referral, and then the launch of my the productivity. So then I shortly after, well, that was before the pandemic, I was the team leader at KW Inglewood.
Yeah.
And so that 2019 it hit. I came back here in 2019. Then the pandemic hit. And then I realized, the key here that I enjoy doing, because I also teach California Realty training. So I teach agents how to get their license. So my passion now is more training and coaching and teaching agents that they can actually make it happen. So that's what I enjoy.
Beautiful. So tell us one thing that you are so into teaching your agents.
Leads, listings, leverage. That's what Gary Keller teaches in the Millionaire Real Estate
Yeah.
Agent book. If you don't have leads, you can't have listings. If you don't have listings, you can't get leverage. You know, one of our mentees, we were talking in our meeting yesterday, he said, I didn't understand how easy it was to get a listing. I was so nervous that after the listing, recognizing how many people that are on your team to help that thing, help it go through. And so getting the leads means you have to talk to people. You have to make at least 15 to 20 contacts a day, not 7 days a week, but at least 5 days a week. Talk to people. Let them know what you do because they don't.
Right. No, it's so interesting because even in my role, as a team leader too, and I wear multiple hats too as a team leader and also as a broker record for the offices. Um, one of the cores is, exactly what you're saying, because if you're not out there, talking to people, you're not going to see the end results, right?
Right.
And like you said earlier, the shirt that says it's a contact sport. It resonates so much with me because it's so true. No one knows you're a real estate professional, but if you're not out there talking to people, you're not going to see the results. I emphasize and I stress and I always say to the agents, always be asking for the order. Ask for the order. That was something that my mentor told me many, many years ago, and it resonates even almost 30 years later. That I have to constantly ask for the order. And it's a reminder for me. And it made me like, what are you talking about, Simon? For me, it resonates because to me, that triggers my mind to go and talk to people about real estate. Now, the conversation doesn't have to start in real estate, but it should end, right? It should
Correct.
end with the real estate conversation or passing on your contact or your business card.
And it has to be genuine. If
100%.
I ask you, so what do you do?
Yeah,
I'm not telling you what I do. What do you do?
yeah,
The most obvious response after you tell me what you do and I see what you do, you're going to say, so what do you do?
yeah.
Well, now I can share,
That's right.
you know?
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. So all this time with KW, so it's yeah,
2 years. Ooh,
Yeah,
I've been
I mean,
working on.
you've been longer than I have. This will be my 11th
Wow.
year with KW.
And I still feel like I'm only 25, I tell you.
Yeah. Well, with all of the multiple hats as a PC coach, as a mentor, as a team leader, as an assistant team leader, as an ALC member, as a producing agent, as a pastor.
Wow. I never thought of it
Yeah.
that.
Well, let's go a little deeper.
Uh-huh.
You do a lot of stuff on social media. You're
Yeah.
a content creator. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, with my coaching and in celebration of my 20th year, I'm launching my coaching business called Real Mastery, which is leads, listings, and leverage. And so basically, I get tired of, and I'm sure agents are aware of this, I get tired of these promises on social media. You buy it, and then all of a sudden it's just a one pager,
Mm,
and agents need something that's usable, something that's able to help them build business. And of course, guess what my foundational training is?
I think I know what it is, but
With foreclosures, 6 letters. The only difference between the 6 letters is now you can do it because before we didn't have texting, we didn't have all of the.
right.
Now you can do it with letters, you can do it with texting, you can do it with email, you can make it more efficient.
Right.
And so that's moving forward right now. I love because right now, even though we're on Zoom, guess what? I'm also talking to my Facebook live friends. I don't know what they're saying, but I don't know who's looking. But it's you have to let everyone know every facet of your life. You can't let them know that you're just a realtor.
Correct.
They have to know all of you because when they know all of you, guess what? The conversation now is built.
Well, it goes deeper, right? Not that you have to be an open book, but you have to be authentic.
Right, right.
And that resonates with a lot of people. And this is why people will do business with you when they like you and trust you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So technology, do you love it?
I love it. I love it. I mean, ChatGPT that came out in November of 22. I've been on it since then. Now it's way beyond that. Now I know people are scared of AI, but however, you remember this, the transition of what happened, before, and we even teach this in class, the different ways that you can build business. Some on the class, we still teach open office hours, meaning when I was growing up in real estate, we could assign ourselves to the front desk, and whoever called in, we would get that client. That's no more. But now, how can I effectively reach out to the masses without physically sitting there all the time and have my mindset already brought forth to people who are calling? So with AI, you can put a knowledge base that you have, meaning everything that you know, and if somebody calls and they ask a question, they can ask the question and answer it just the way you would answer it. And if they need to talk to you, they could say, okay, would you like to speak with Fred? And they say, sure. Okay, let me look at his calendar, connect to the calendar. And then the next thing know, you have a booked appointment on your calendar. And when you arrive, you already know what the conversation is going to be about. That is the benefit of AI. Right. And that goes beyond ChatGPT. ChatGPT is just the foundation. Now you have the ability to have outgoing calls, inbound calls, and be able to use that effectively.
Yeah.
As you can see, that's a passion for me right now.
Yeah. Well, for a lot of people, it's leverage, right?
Mhm.
And we talk about leverage, especially in real estate. We can do more with the power of leverage and the power of technology. Going back again when I started my career in the 90s, we didn't have websites. We had pagers. If you guys know what pagers are, they were little devices that we would keep on our side belt, and they would beep. A number would come out, and then we would go to a payphone,
Right.
and then make a call, go to the office, or
Well, there were pros and cons. When you were in school, when there were nobody, when you were in school, it was okay because your parents didn't know what was wrong because they couldn't call.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guess what, Fred? It's that time already.
Is it that time? Man, wow. Did I talk too much?
No, not at all.
Y'all, did I talk too much? Please tell me.
I can't believe it's already 8:29.
Wow.
Let me see. Let me double check. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Man.
just a couple of final thoughts that you'd like to share with the group.
Final thoughts. Whether, like I know on Zoom, I'm talking to real estate agents. On my Facebook Live, I'm talking to different people. But if you want to do something, go ahead and do it. The only thing that's stopping you from being successful in your business, in your career, is you.
That's right.
I tell people this every day. And this is, I'm talking to real estate agents. Keller Williams isn't for everybody, yet Keller Williams is for everybody because the support and the training that you get here at Keller Williams at a minimal cost, gives you what you need. I mean, I wouldn't be here for 20 years and still hold my head up and have a smile on my face. It is possible. So I say go out and be like Nike. Just go and do it. Let people know who you are. Don't be a secret agent. Gain relationships in the office. When you see somebody in the office that you don't know, get to know them. We're not strangers, whether they be high producers, mid producers, no producers. Get to know them because they're the ones that's going to help you get across the line.
Yeah. Fun fact. Okay. And you'll know as soon as I start talking, but fun fact, this was probably sometime last year. I tell Fred, hey Fred, I got something for you. And Fred says, you do? I go, yeah, I have something. And we kept missing one another. I didn't have an opportunity to connect with him. And then he texts me or he says, hey, I know you had told me something that you wanted to share or give me. So I says, oh, yeah. Let me go get it because it was in my vehicle. So I go get it. I meet up with Fred. Fred is like, wondering what it is. So I hand it to him. And it's an old newsletter that I found, true story, from one of my properties that I had bought as an investment. And the owner was he was a hoarder. So throughout all of the stuff that we were tossing out, I happened to find a newsletter or a newspaper, and I just started going through it. And this was like early 2000.
2008.
And I'm going through this newspaper, and guess who I see on this newspaper? I see Fred Howard with jet black hair.
Here, first of all.
Yeah, you remember that time?
Yes, that was, like I said, remember when the market fell and I stopped doing, I took the money that I, made during those years and I started another business called Raise the Praise newspaper. And it was basically geared towards churches.
Right.
And so it was a weekly publication that had the ability to actually put, since I was the publisher and the owner, I could put all of my advertising in there. So, that's
Yeah, he had a whole page. His face was there, Mr. Fred Howard, Keller Williams. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. It's like, wow, of all places, how things connect. And, they had this in one of their chests. So I was just trying to see what is good to keep or what to toss. And I just happened to look through this newspaper and found your face there, advertisements. So there you go. Even 20 years later, you may still get a listing from it.
Yes.
With that said, Mr. Fred Howard, thank you, sir.
Thank you. And thank you guys for putting up some time and sitting in here and listening to this old man. Yes.
No, that's never old, my friend. All right. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone on Zoom. Much appreciated. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a wonderful and a safe weekend. And we will see you on the next Producer's Mindset. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thank you guys.
Have a good day.
Thank you, guys.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let me stop my Facebook.